Hello and welcome to the Marketing Mix. Today we are going to talk about quite a hot topic. We're going to talk about sustainability. And you might be thinking, well, what has that got to do with marketing? Well, that's where Alex Hughes comes in. She's my guest expert. And she's going to talk us through how you can be more sustainable with your marketing as a small business owner. So, Alex, please tell us a little bit about you and a bit about your business.
Good afternoon, everyone. Thank you, Minal, for inviting me along today. It's been a great pleasure. So my name is Alex Hughes. I run a business called Auxilium Business Consulting. I'm based in Kingston upon Thames, and I help small service-based business owners take a helicopter view of their business, get all their ducks in a row, and just basically get everything working again and get them falling in love with their business. So I have 15 years of financial background in foreign exchange and money markets, and then in sales for Thomson Reuters, and then 18 years as an operations manager for a bespoke furniture manufacturers and been running my business for 6 years. So I'm kind of well versed in things for small business owners, including more recently sustainability.
Quickly, that's quite a good that's quite a history there. So what made you start your own business?
I'd been in the furniture manufacturers for 18 years, and towards the end of that time, a lot of my friends and family had come to me to ask them to help them with their small business, as they knew I was kind of looking at the operations of the current business I was working for. And I saw a gap and saw an area where small business owners needed some help. They didn't need like big corporate packages to help them, or they couldn't afford big amounts of money. They just wanted somebody to come in who understood their business, and that's when I started to run Auxilium.
Amazing. And for the uninitiated, what is operations? What are you looking at?
So what I would describe it as is all the cogs of your business. So we're looking at sales, marketing, we're looking at finance, we're looking at CRMs, we're looking at procurement, all the different areas of your business that need to flow together, run together, move together in unison in order to make your business grow and thrive. And sometimes they get a bit rusty, and sometimes they need oiling, and that's when I come in.
Amazing. That's a really, I like that. It gets rusty, needs oiling. That's a great description. So you just help smooth things over and help people run their businesses in a good way that is more efficient, I guess.
Well, a lot of people have come to a crossroads. They might have been running the business for a little while. They've been running it in the same way. They're growing the business, they're taking on staff, they've got more clients, and things don't work in the same way. So they have to tweak things, bring in some software, outsource, all sorts of things need to happen in order for that growth to take place.
Amazing. So in your business journey, I know we're going to talk about sustainability. So let's talk about how you make your business more sustainable, in particular, how you bring that into your marketing.
So just to give you a little bit of background of why I've come into sustainability. So I've always been really passionate about it. Mm-hmm. About 3 or 4 years ago, I came across a company called CSRA. They're an accreditation body based in Buckinghamshire. I went on a webinar, went on some training, and was absolutely blown away, and decided to follow their training and collate some information about the way I run my business. And I was able to then evidence that in an accreditation, and I was awarded a silver accreditation for my business. So I suddenly thought to myself, gosh, so many small business owners could do this, but they don't realize how or what they need to evidence to do that. And so I set up the SO program in my business to help small business owners do this. And I've just sort of taken a look at 4 pillars. So environment, everything that the business does in the environment area, the community it works in, the workplace, and the philanthropic efforts. I have to be careful when I say that. Philanthropic efforts that people make. And the thing about it is, when you start brainstorming, all small business owners are doing so much more than they think they.
Okay, interesting.
And the 4 pillars really sort of mean something to a small business owner. I mean, you've probably heard of other accreditations, B Corps and Planet Mark and Zeller and Green Mark. And sometimes small business owners think those things are not in their reach. They are, but there are others that would mean more, and that's when I came across CSRA, and that's what I was looking at for my business, and then was weaving it into all the messages that I was telling people about the subject area and obviously the services that I provide.
Yeah. So how do you, outside of messaging, like what are you doing to make your marketing more sustainable?
Well, first of all, I'm trying to understand my audience, what their values are, what their needs are, and what their preferences are. And then I'm kind of defining my goals of what am I doing, why am I doing it, and what actions I'm taking, and are they relevant to my business? And then I'm promoting my products and my services in order to help small business owners. And generally, in my messaging, being honest and open and transparent, because sustainability is never finished. It's a work in progress. And there's things that we can't do, and we have to be honest and say we can't do them. And if we've only just started, be honest and just say you're starting your journey. And also lots of collaborations with people, trying to get like-minded people to be my clients, to be my suppliers, to be my collaboration partners, just getting the messaging out there so that people know that that's what I stand for, what I'm passionate about. And then it's like a bit of a magnet. You start attracting people through your in the marketing that you're doing, and that's how it's working. It's taken a little while because sustainability is something that what I've realized recently is a lot of people are looking at it as a reactionary thing, instead of being proactive. So a lot of people come to me recently because they've hit pain points. So for example, they haven't been able to evidence in tenders or preferred suppliers lists some of their actions and their ways of working in the sustainability field. And so they've come to me reacting, go, oh my goodness, I've just lost a piece of work, rather than being proactive and going, right, okay, in 6 months' time, I'm going to be doing X, Y, and Z, and I need to be upfront with all this, and I have to have done this piece of work. So it's mission critical, really. It's not a luxury. This has become something that is a must do and a must have. And as far as I'm concerned, your marketing and the things you do, you need to weave that into the core of your business. And every single thing that I mentioned earlier has to have a strand of sustainability in it for them all to run together. So sustainability just doesn't stand alone.
No.
It's woven completely internally, top down, bottom up.
And so I like that, top down, bottom up. So it's interesting because when people think about marketing, they immediately start thinking of things like social media and webinars and stuff like that. So what can we do to make the tools that we use to deliver our messages, what can we do to make sure that we're being sustainable with those?
Well, I've decided to cut down on the amount of digital platforms I'm on. They use energy and what have you. So I've decided to completely focus on LinkedIn from the beginning of the year, rather than worrying about being on too many platforms. Rightly or wrongly, that was my choice, and actually it seems to have paid dividends. I've decided which in-person meetings I'm going to go to, networking, which ones I'm going to do online and how many I'm going to do online, connecting and collaborating, joining groups, and just looking at the way I procure the things I need for my office, where I get my paper from, how many emails I'm sending out, am I unsubscribing from things? All these things are driving traffic and causing carbon and emissions. So I always say to people, look at those 4 pillars, and I look at the environment, all the things I'm doing that affect the environment, all the things I'm doing in my community. Am I reaching out to people? Am I supporting local groups? Am I donating to charities? If I've got employees, which I haven't, but I look at the way I run my business, how do you run your business? Are you, someone's driving to your office, have you got somewhere for them to park their electric car? Have you got chargers? There's just all sorts of things that you can be doing and brainstorming in these areas, and then just talking about what you're doing online and being specific, open and honest, and just telling people what you're doing. So that's the way I've done mine.
Okay, so it's interesting you said talking about it online. So and you mentioned that you're just on LinkedIn. So how on LinkedIn do you weave in how you're being sustainable outside of just saying it? Are there subtle ways of doing it, or do you just out and out say it?
It depends what subject area. If I've been to a conference, for example, I might say something like, did I really need another pen? Did I really need another mug? Do I need all these things?
This is true.
Do I need those extra things? When you're out and about networking, you might talk about, did I need to give a business card, or could I just scan something? So it's always thinking about when you're out and about. So it's not always the services I'm selling, it's the things I'm doing as well.
Yeah.
You know, the other day, for example, which counts towards it, I met somebody networking, and they're in a group where they've got refugees who are sewing, and they were in need of some sewing machines. I had a sewing machine I haven't used for years. I offered it to them. They've come around, they've collected it, and I've donated it now to the refugee group who are making things to sell in the local community.
It's amazing. And I think, to your point about conferences, because I obviously I go to a few things, and I've exhibited at expos, but I've now started turning down pens and mugs and stuff. I just don't need that stuff. And in fact, I exhibited at the Hillingdon Business Expo in May, and I had a little competition on my stand. So, you know, one of those, I forgot what they call it. They're those little things where you have to get the wire around without touching the... So I had one of those on my stand, and if you got round, you got a prize. But my prizes were seeds that they could plant in their garden. So I had sunflower seeds, I had sweet pea, and a bunch of different things, which then, you know, I was able to add a bit of my branding to, so that people took away those, and hopefully people are going to plant some of the bulbs and seeds, and when the flowers appear, they'll remember me. But I chose not to have things, you know, additional bits of plastic or stuff on my stand that people probably would end up throwing away.
Absolutely. And I belong to ecology, and I on a monthly basis donate some money towards trees. But when I've completed a project, I do a shout out on LinkedIn saying I've just bought 50 trees to say thank you to whoever it is. Also, I've got some little cards that got seeds in them, and I can send a thank you card, and that person can put them in a little bit of soil, put some water on, and grow some seeds. So it's just thinking slightly outside the box about different ways to promote your passion. And actually be sustainable at the same time.
Jade is she's watching. She loves the idea of giving away seeds instead of tat, and it is tat. It's our way of making sure people remember us, but let's try and make that way more memorable rather than another pen. I mean, I've got this pen. It's actually from BT, and I know exactly where it came from. They sent me a bunch of stuff, and I've got this one pen, but I know I've got some others somewhere else because they sent me like a whole bunch of them. I'm like, I'm not going to need 10 pens. I'm just not going to need them. The best thing they sent me was this. BT branded, but it's a mobile phone holder. So my phone sits on here when I'm, you know, so that's the best thing.
Yep.
And it's made of wood.
And you know what? People are doing so many more things than they think of. I mean, I was talking to somebody last week, and she said, "Oh, can I put down all the donations I've made? And I'm actually climbing Ben Nevis this weekend and raising some money. Does that count?" I said, "Absolutely. This is all about you. It's about your business, but it's about you as a person and what you stand for. And the messaging has to come out in everything you're saying. But you are a person who runs a business, and people want to know about you and what your passions are and what you stand for."
Absolutely. And just coming back to that whole conference sort of space, when you think about if you go to something big, like if you go to Excel and the number of exhibitors are there, can you imagine the amount of stuff, like plastic bags? I know people give away tote bags, but there's even a sustainability issue with those tote bags, isn't there? Because I think there's something about them taking ages to decompose, or I can't remember what it was, but it surprised me because I was like, oh, I thought tote bags were really green. But yeah, I refuse. The best giveaway I ever got at an expo was a cherry tree sapling, and it's still in my garden.
Oh, how wonderful!
Yeah. So
but that's what you think about where things have come from. Where has that bag come from? What's the carbon footprint of that bag, of where it's been imported from? What is it? So you've got to think about that as well as this disposal side or recycling side or reusing side, or how many ever R's there are these days. Lots of them.
I know.
But it's all about just taking that time to think about how we can do things in a sustainable manner. Do we need another one of X, Y, or Z? Is there a better option? Is there a more sustainable option? Can I wait a bit of time? You know, do I need to do another banner? Do I need to have another flyer or a leaflet? You know, and as we discussed, do I need to take all this tat,
Yeah.
whatever you call it, from the
Yeah.
comments. No, it's
Absolutely.
about choices, isn't it?
Yeah.
And those are your sustainable choices. And just going back to the marketing, just sort of keeping it laser focused and connecting and collaborating and just getting your message across. And over time, that message will come out, and people will know you for those messages that you're conveying in your social media and other methodologies of websites, etc.
Yeah. And I love that, because marketing is all about consistency. It's consistently putting forward the same messages so that people get what you're about and what you're offering and how it benefits them. So, if if a person who's in the market to buy whatever you're selling, if sustainability is one of the top things in their mind about, when they buy from somebody, if you don't tell them that that's important to you as well, they're never going to know, and they're potentially never going to be a customer.
Right.
So it is worth being upfront, because you do attract people that have the same or similar values to you.
Well, I think a lot of this messaging really does sort of help you retain clients, attract employees. It helps stakeholders. You can get funding. Ultimately, you can reduce costs in your business. You can stand out in your industry. You can highlight all your USPs. There's just so many benefits. Yes, there could be some instances when things might cost you a little bit more money in the first instance, but that's your ethos behind whatever you're choosing, as opposed to something cheaper. And in the long term, it's going to be more beneficial for you. But there are so many benefits from starting this journey.
Absolutely. And you've just perked up my ear at funding, because obviously small businesses are resource strapped. So can you tell us a bit about the funding that people might be able to get?
There are the local grants and fundings. There's a website, and off the top of my head, I haven't got it, but there are funding, outlets, if you like. But what you need to understand about that is what I've heard from a couple of my clients is that it can be anywhere between 10 and 20% now of the application that sustainability questions come up. And if you haven't done that piece of work, you might find that particularly difficult to evidence.
Yeah.
So I just say to people, brainstorm those 4 areas, the 4 pillars: environment, community, workplace, and philanthropy. And I think you're going to give my website later on, and on my website, there's checklists where people can go and have a brainstorm and start looking at what you're doing and start recording some of the things that you're doing. Start that journey now. And I work with my clients to put a roadmap together, and this is something that's a work in progress document, and every time they do something new they add to it, so that if they're ever asked for that information, they've got it to hand.
So what kinds of, those 4 pillars, what kinds of, I get philanthropy, but what kinds of things, like for workplace? Just give us a few examples of things that could come under that heading.
It could be, being a paperless office. It could be unsubscribing from emails. It could be having online meetings. It could be deciding on how many meetings you're going to go to by train. Maybe you are not going to go by plane anymore. You might have an environmental policy. You might have a turning off lights issue. You might have a shredder that everyone has to use in a certain way. You might have to recycle in a certain way. It depends how big your office is and all the rest of it. There's so many things that you can do within that, and it could be your banking, your business banking as well, could be with a sustainable bank, all those sorts of things, and it really business. But what have I got up here? All sorts of things. And remembering that if you run your business at home, things you do at home also count. So if you've got an electric charger for your car outside, that counts. If you've got a wormery, if you've got a water butt, all these things count about the way you run your business. If you're ordering, paper online, or if you're having deliveries from Oddbox or Fishbox or something like that, all these things are sustainable. I know it's counting for you personally, but you run your business at home, and therefore the CSRA accreditation body will look at the way you run your business at home as well.
That's interesting, because I didn't think that it would apply because obviously I run my business from home. I didn't think it would apply to me. And I recently, I had there's a scheme that's happening at Brunel that I forgot what it's called, but I just said yes. Would you like to be part of this? We'll assess you. And I was like, oh, okay, yes. And I had a really in-depth meeting with a lady who assessed my business skills and where my gaps were. And she went on to recommend some workshops. But as part of that assessment, she asked me how sustainable, like what my sustainability practices. And I was like, well, I work from home. I don't really use my car very often. If I have to, it's short, it's a low emission car. I generally travel by public transport. Locally, I walk everywhere. So I was like, how does this all count to my business being sustainable? But you've just answered that, because my meetings are mostly online.
Yep.
But yeah, I do. I surprised me that a one-person business could be sustainable. I had no idea that working from home counted in this.
No, if we all unsubscribe from emails, or we all reduce the amount of CCs that we put on an email, because not everybody needs to do it, there'd be so much traffic going around the cloud, and if we all didn't have so many documents, or we shared documents rather than emailing them, I mean, the list can just go on and on and on.
Yeah.
But once you start brainstorming it, you realize you're doing so many more things than you had already thought.
And I just remembered, because I for the last month or so, I've been trialing Notion.
Oh yeah.
Which allows me to share. I have a VA who does some of my social media, but rather than emailing her documents now, I can put them straight into Notion, and she can find them there. So that's helped reduce that email traffic. So gosh, I'm doing things without even knowing I'm doing things.
I use a Remarkable 2 now, which is a note-taking device that allows me to throw things up on the screen and share it with clients, and download PDFs and change things. So there's so many different ways. So I haven't got piles of notebooks anymore, wondering which notebook I had a meeting with X, Y, or Z last year. So I can just search on my Remarkable 2. So there's so many things that we can do.
And what about where do you stand on printed items? Because obviously sometimes we need to print things. I mean, I've got my planner in my background, and that's a physical product that people can buy from me. But flyers and stuff.
Clearly, we need to print less and less of those, but there are instances when we need them. I've just spoken to somebody who has a brochure that he used to give out, a nice big glossy brochure, and now he's just decided that it's all going to go digital and online. And if people want certain pages out of that, he'll just email those rather than sending off a great big fat beautiful brochure. I mean, I went to see a house about 6 months ago, a brand new house, for example, and the gentleman handed me this beautiful brochure, and I didn't end up buying that house. And at the end of it, I just said to him, I'm going to give you the brochure back, because these have cost you a lot of money, and if I'm not buying this house, then this could then go in the bin or be recycled, and I don't believe that. So I gave it back to him. He said, no one's ever done that before.
I know.
And I said, well, I just don't believe in taking it for the sake of taking it. So I think you just have to stop and think, do I need that? How can I do that in a more efficient way? Can I break down that document to just one page? Can I share that document with my client in the cloud? Do I really need to attach this document? So there's just so many things. And every time you do something, you have to stop yourself and think, right, okay, I can do this more sustainably. And if everybody did that, it would make a huge difference.
Massive. I'm going to call you the Martin Lewis of sustainability.
I don't know.
Just because that's his advice for when people go to buy something. It's like, stop and think, do I really need this? But it's true. I think as a society, we do consume a lot. And that's one thing that I realized when I started my business. I was made redundant, and then I started my business and started working out of home. And the amount of stuff that I bought fell drastically. At one, because I didn't always have a lot of money, but two, because I wasn't out and about as much. I used to work on Regent Street, so it was so easy to buy things. And I realized that actually I didn't need as many things as I ever bought.
Absolutely.
So yeah, definitely, it's just definitely worth taking that moment to think about whether you really need to do something in a particular way, or whether there's a way around it. So what are your top 3 tips as we wrap up? What are your top 3 tips in terms of how small businesses, we're talking about, maybe solo business owners like me and you, how we can make our businesses sustainable?
Well, you've taken one of them, which was being consistent, but I think you need to share your journey, especially with sustainability and its ups and downs and pluses and minuses. It's never going to be a smooth road. So share your journey with everyone, because it's highly likely that that journey is going to hit a pain point for somebody else, or someone else goes, oh, that's happened to me. Share solutions about how things can be solved, and be the real you, and be honest and transparent about what you're doing, because that's going to really sort of attract people. And share your passion, because I think once you've done that, people can see the real you, and then your drive and passion will shine through, and that will end up being your marketing bridge for selling. So then you won't need to sell, because the marketing bridge from your passion and everything that you've shown everyone will just help to bring clients to you. That's what I would say.
Fabulous. Thank you so much. I have popped Alex's website into the comments, so do go and have a visit and look and see what resources she's got. And obviously, if you want to work with Alex, you'll be able to find her contact details there. But it's such an important topic. I was watching a program with Chris. I was going to say Chris Martin. It wasn't Chris Martin. It was Chris Packham last night about Earth and how the original ice age and warming up and stuff. And so much of it rings true now in terms of how the planet is warming up, and we've got a finite amount of time to do stuff about it. So we can all play our own little part. So please do go and visit Alex's website and get resources and stuff, and start your journey today. It's not too late to get started. Thank you so much, Alex, for joining me. I'm just going to pop a link into the chat. If you are not part of the Marketing Morsel Club, it's my weekly newsletter and more. There are other freebies and benefits that you get for joining. So do check that link out and sign up for that. But Alex, thank you so much for your time today. This has been really interesting. And it's just a snapshot of how we can be more sustainable. But tiny things are going to make a difference. And, every tiny thing that you do is going to add up to bigger things. So please go ahead and check Alex's website out. I will see you in 2 weeks' time with the lovely Jade Anderson, who is watching today. And we are going to be talking about copywriting tips for websites. So I will see you in 2 weeks' time. Take care.
So